You need to join Toastmasters.
I do. One of these days I'll join the Executive Toastmasters Club of Makati. So how do you go about it, Gina?
Provide feedback?
Yes, what are the steps?
Well,
how does it happen in the Toastmaster Club scenario?
In the Toastmasters Club scenario, we provide feedback for performances within the club, a delivery of a speech.
Yeah.
The first thing we must do is listen and observe. Then analyze the data that you have picked up through your senses, that you have observed. Analyze it, and with the recipient of the feedback in mind, then you express your feedback in a manner, of course, that is likely to inspire the receiver to accept it and to use it, but always with the mind that the speaker can reject. It's up to him.
And you can take this into real work life and apply it for daily situation, the same technique.
You know, Raju, there's an expression that we use a lot in Toastmasters, which is you give the kisses and then a kick, which means that you all the things good that you hear in someone's speech in order to motivate them. And then you also give them something to grow on at the end, which is the suggestion on how to improve.
Right.
And this basic formula is something that you can use in everyday life.
How do you take that home?
You
How do you
should
take that home?
catch people doing things right.
Oh, okay.
Also in a work situation and even at home if you're managing household
so
staff.
it's a little bit of like positive psychology.
Yes,
is that
precisely.
Like it?
That's exactly.
So do you use that at home, Julia? Do you use that with Frank? Or
I try to use it at home, absolutely.
And it works well?
Not so good with Frank, not so much, but with the helpers, it's a very good way of dealing with people.
Okay, great. You know what? We need to take a couple of minutes break. We'll come back and talk to you, Julia, about what you are doing besides being a consultant with ADB and being a Toastmaster. So 1 minute break, 1 minute break, and we'll just come back to you. We have Julia and Gina. Welcome back. We are still with Julia Holz and Gina Mapua. And in the break, Julia mentioned that her job at the ADB is not that of a counselor, it is of a conciliator. I have no idea what that means. Let's ask her. Julia, what does a conciliator mean?
Okay, this is my job at the ADB, where I still work part-time. A conciliator is someone who tries to resolve a conflict situation. Now what we have at the ADB is we have a administrative tribunal process, so that if someone is employed at the bank and that they have a problem with a decision that was taken, and they want to challenge that decision, then they don't go through a formal legal system, but they do it internally through an administrative tribunal. Now the first step in that process is conciliation.
Okay.
That means that I have 15 days to try to resolve the conflict between that staff and the bank.
So it's a people issue, it's not a
it's
ADB
absolutely a people issue. Yes.
And how long have you been doing this for ADB?
Since 2004.
2004. But prior to that, you were a CPA.
I'm still a CPA.
Prior to that, you did accounting and financial.
Prior to that, at the bank, I did accounting and finance work.
So this job of a conciliator, what qualified you to become a conciliator? Was it Toastmasters?
Actually, Toastmasters has helped.
A bit. Okay.
It has
what
helped.
Qualified you other than Toastmasters?
I did some external training in mediation work. And also during my time in the Philippines, I mentioned the international school at the beginning.
Right.
I served as the, I didn't ever serve there as a teacher, but I did serve as the president of the school board for 2 years, and on the school board for 6 years. And during that time, we had many conflicts to resolve. So I had some first-hand experience.
Is it possible for you to share an example of a conflict without using names?
At the international school?
At the ADB?
No. All of that is
completely
confidential. Totally confidential.
Very good.
Actually, each case is different enough that sharing those experiences
will highlight the persons involved.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. You then now do work with the InTouch Foundation.
Yes.
And with your 30 years experience in this country, being a teacher, being a president of a school, being a conciliator, and being a Toastmaster, you have come up with a seminar called Living in the Philippines.
That's right.
You want to tell us about it?
Living in the Philippines. It's actually called, by InTouch, it's called Introduction to Living in the Philippines. And this seminar is meant really for expats to help them figure out how to settle in here more easily. You know, when people come into the Philippines, it seems like everyone speaks English, everything is available in the department stores, everything looks fine and looks very Western, but actually there's a different set of values here and a different culture. And once people realize some of those differences, they can find their experience here will be easier and more enjoyable.
Cite an example or a value that most expats do not discover right away about the Filipinos or the Philippines.
Okay. Maybe one that I would emphasize in the course is something here called Pakikasama.
Pakikasama.
Yeah. Do you know that, Raju?
Somewhat. I've been here in this country less than you. Pakikasama, that means becoming affiliative, caring for another, going into it together.
Yes,
I'm assuming.
that's right.
Going
that's
into
very
it together
good.
is the right.
Gina, right? Is
Getting
that right?
along.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's actually, the way I define it in the course is that it's smooth interpersonal relations. This is something that's really important in the culture here. Now, if you're in a work environment, and even if you're at home and you're supervising household staff, it's really important to realize that the work atmosphere is key and of key importance in the Philippines.
The work atmosphere rather than the task at hand, rather than the results.
Rather than the task at hand.
The panahon, the atmosphere at work.
Panahon might not be the exact word.
The ambience. Work ambience. Okay. So how do you put this point across to newcomers to this country? How do you make them understand and implement this?
Well, we have, in the course, I use some cartoons.
Okay.
Which are visual cartoons, so I really can't share them with you here, but maybe someone who's listening would be interested in seeing some of those, so they'll have to come to the course itself.
I wish you'd brought them here.
But there are very different styles of perceiving things. In the Philippines, for example, I like to hike. And when I go hiking, I often go alone. And this is something that's never done here. And so people who see me hiking will say, well, where is your companion? And
they go,
they're
why are you alone?
shocked, to see that you're alone. So people here tend to do things in groups. How that translates perhaps in a household situation is if someone has a birthday, or even in the office, it's usually a group celebration, what's called here a blowout. The person who is celebrating the birthday, it's not fiesta.
Fiesta is in the provinces.
Yeah, right.
It's different.
But a blowout, it's called a blowout, and it means that you actually will sponsor on your birthday a treat for everyone that you work with. So this is very different from a Western orientation.
This is one value. Do you have an example of any other value that you put across in your workshop?
Actually, there's one that's currently in the news now when we had this hostage-taking situation.
What was the value?
Okay, the value is that you need to be very respectful in dealing here with all Filipinos.
And what's the word for it in Tagalog?
Respectful. Paggalang.
Paggalan?
Paggalang.
Actually, when I discuss this in my seminar, I put it under the rubric of Amor, Propio.
That's also good,
Amor,
yes.
Propio.
Okay, it means kind of self-respect and the idea that losing face would be a very serious problem.
Here.
It's a very serious issue. So if you are in a work situation, you always have to be conscious of not embarrassing people, not criticizing them publicly, because people react badly to that. And I'm not suggesting that that terrible situation with the hostage is direct connection to that value, but I'm saying that you have to really be careful how you criticize, how you correct people, and how you give feedback,
was probably one of the minor causes, influences there.
Perhaps.
Let's not pass judgment on that incident.
Yeah.
You are also, I want to ask you a question about specific cultural differences between American and Philippines. How does an American and a Filipino differ? You want to share that with us? You've been in this country for 30 long years.
I think one of the main differences here is that you hear a lot. You hear many Filipinos say that they are sensitive, very sensitive.
Caring, they call it cariñoso.
There are many adjectives that will describe this, but I think the difference in a work situation might be that they may react personally to some suggestion. They may take it personally where it's actually just meant work-related. And in this case, you want to tell people, please develop a thick skin, but that's easy to say, but harder to do. So if you flip that to the other side, the person, the Westerner, who is giving this direct comment that may be hurtful to the recipient, should just learn to tone down the automatic reaction to get things done.
Gina, you as an Italian, as a mestiza in this country, what side of that cultural difference would you be standing on? Would you consider yourself to be sensitive or as task-related as non-Filipinos are?
I have a tendency to be task-related as well, and I've had to learn to be sensitive.
But even though you grew up in this country?
Even though I grew up here, but I like to think that it is, well, part of it is my upbringing, but also I would believe that it is also my personality. I do tend to come across strong. So I've had to learn to tippy-toe around and be sensitive to other people and watch how I speak and how I express myself.
And the word was pagagalang?
Paggalang means respect.
Paggalang?
I would believe that Julia's word, Amor Propio, as a description of the situation would probably be more appropriate.
What does the word Amor Propio mean? That's Spanish. Amor is love, Propio
self-love.
is proper. Or self?
Propio.
Oh, Propio.
Self-esteem, self-respect.
Self-esteem, yeah.
Okay, so you got to handle that thing with kid gloves if you want to survive in this culture. Or at least succeed and grow.
Be aware. Awareness first. And then you can learn
gentle practice.
You can learn practice responses.
All right, Gina, let's come back to Toastmasters. Part of this feedback giving, I think if we can apply that Amor Propio and giving feedback will work too. Now, in a Toastmasters scenario, what is, not in the club, but at the country level, you've been the district governor, how big is Toastmasters in the Philippines and how do people get into it?
In the Philippines, Toastmasters is centered along 3 major cities where the majority of the clubs are based. Manila, the whole of Metro Manila. There's one up north in Baguio, several clubs there. Cebu, and Davao. Bacolod is also beginning to build up a certain number of clubs. So
there's another node of...
it's heavily city-centered, but we have many other clubs that I like to call missionary clubs. They're all alone by themselves. There's one, for example, in Isabela called Cagayan Valley. So they have a different set of problems as opposed to the city clubs. But overall, Toastmasters is not as prevalent in the Philippines as I would like it to be. It can help so many Filipinos develop their self-esteem, their abilities, their skills, and their self-confidence in expressing themselves. So our work here in Toastmasters in the Philippines is still about building and spreading the word.
How many people have, over the years, graduated or learned or passed through this Institute of Toastmasters, in your experience?
Worldwide, millions.
How about
millions of men and women. In the Philippines, of course, we can't have millions, thousands. We have had thousands of graduates.
Since the year? Since
1952, when the first club was formed here in the Philippines.
Was it a Filipino or an American?
It was a Filipino club. It was started by Teddy Calao, Teodoro Calao himself.
T.M. Calao, the street in Ermita, the same gentleman?
That's right. That club still exists. It's called the Tamarao Toastmasters Club. That is our oldest club.
So going back over the years, how many Filipinos have gained the benefits, acquired the benefits of Toastmasters?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say that many thousands of people over the years since the 1950s have developed that skill. Many, I would believe, are politicians